But I think it had just kind of tainted me on the commercial side. So I decided I wanted to step back, from that.
That's interesting. So we've kind of gotten into the podcast, but I want to introduce, and my man can chop it up here, but I want to introduce Matt North of Good Guys Flooring. We're having a great conversation, but we're going to rewind it back and play some segments before and after. But Matt is a good friend of mine. I'm happy to have him in. He's kind of taught me a lot about the flooring industry, and just we've had some great lunches and breakfasts about just different things that's going on from an entrepreneurial standpoint. So I wanted to have him in on the What's Your Specialty podcast. Good to have you, man.
Well, thank you, Derek, for having me.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
The work-life balance that we grew up not having, that what you spoke about your dad, is trying to find a good mix of that. Because to me, we always think work your butt off, work to, hustle, 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. And then when you get into your middle years or your later years, then you have the ability to kind of slow down and kind of pick your moments.
You would think.
Yeah, you would think.
That hasn't happened yet.
No, it hasn't happened yet. But I don't think it ever does. If you're doing something that you love, you're not really hustling. You're not really working hard. You're just doing something that you enjoy doing. So.
Yeah. Speaking of that, for me, I don't know if I'm crazy or what it is, but something drives me to keep pushing like really, really hard. I've always had that desire to be the best in the room. Any business that I've worked at, whether it's sales or in a warehouse or whatever it is, I've always wanted to be the best, and not in a negative way. I'm not looking around at other people like I want to be better than you.
Right.
It's just something inherently in me that's always been there. And so I do kind of struggle. When we're going through the hiring process and we're hiring people, it's like I'm always looking to replicate that. I want to find that person. And I don't want this to sound negative in any way, shape, or form, but over the past 3 years, like I said, the core people right now that we have are fantastic, but we've gone through so many to get to those people. I almost feel like I've had to lower my standard from where I initially... Maybe it was just me being naive, and starting this business. Like, okay, I'm going to have all these sales guys and gals, and they're going to come in and they're going to do this much volume. And maybe they're a $60,000 a month producer, and because of our environment, because we want to be different, and we want to have a better work environment for them, we're going to help them to be able to sell 80 or 100,000. And so initially, we actually thought, we're going to have all these sales people and they're going to be averaging a higher volume of sales. And we've just learned over the last 3 years that there's not a whole lot of those people, whether you mold them or whether they've been in the industry for a long time. So, to your point, yeah, absolutely. When you get them, you need to hang on to them.
Yeah.
And so we really value the employees that we do have. But I mean, it's a constant grind and struggle to find more good talent. So
what's their average sales goals per month for
it varies.
Yeah.
So when we first started, the thought process was that, we would kind of create this elite team of salespeople for our industry. And we felt like $100,000 a month kind of put somebody into that status in our industry. The average order value on flooring is probably around $5,000. So if somebody's able to sell and kind of manage through the process, because you're not just selling in our business.
You're also managing the whole...
Yeah, you are. It's similar to what you guys are doing. You're going into somebody's home. Once you start that relationship, that person trusts the first point of contact. You can't just sell it to them and then step back and hope that it's going to, be taken care of. So we really preach that to our team. You're more of an account manager than you are just a salesperson.
Yep.
You need to be there for the customer. You need to be creating the proper expectations with the installer. You need to create the proper expectations even with our field managers and use the staff that we have to help support you in that customer experience so they have a better experience. That's one of the reasons we started this company, because I've worked for quite a few different flooring companies and there just wasn't a good process.
Yep.
So we've tried to create a process that supports the sales team so you're not just out there on your own hoping that things are going to go well. But it's just really difficult to, we've hired people that are much older. And then we've hired people that are a lot younger. We've hired people that tell us that they've been in the industry for 20 years. And of course, when I hear that, I'm thinking, okay, this person knows what they're doing, and you're laughing because you probably know exactly where I'm going with it,
Right.
And then 2 weeks in, you're like, what in the world is going on? Like,
Right.
why? So they talk a really good game, and then nothing happens. So we're trying, long story short, we're trying a little bit of everything. I mean, I think that there could be talent with people that are completely green, like my son, for example.
Because they're not tainted by what culture they went through before, or how they, because this industry, they seem to have a lot of different tactics as far as how to incentivize. It's almost like the car business, right? You're incentivizing a commission person, and so if that commission person leaves, then they're taking probably their book of business and their their installers and different people, or they're bringing over. So they feel like they have their own business, right? And it's trying to really, give them value of what you guys provide. It sounds like you guys are kind of teeing up the jobs, and they have to just basically knock it down or maintain it based on what I'm
when
hearing.
it comes to the builder business, so what we're doing right now is when we first started out, it was all builder business. And that was the business model. That was the thought process. We're going to start out, we're just going to, and that's why our location isn't in the best location right now, which we are moving that because we've had to change our thought process, as we continue to grow. So I would say probably 6 months in, we started to ramp up about 90 days in, and we got really excited, so as soon as we started seeing the money come in, we probably had a team started off with just me. And I would say within 90 days, we probably had, probably a team of 5 people. Okay. I had one staff accountant. I already had my sales manager, my operations manager, and then we hired our first salesperson. So we had 5 people. With that 5 people, probably about 90, 120 days in, we were seeing that we were ramping up just like we thought. Everything was going as planned. And, we started to see the money, the cash flow, actually getting ahead. And so we got really excited and decided that, we're going to go ahead and expand. And so we ended up hiring more salespeople. And, hindsight, being 2020, maybe we could have paced it a little bit differently. But we brought in probably 3 more salespeople. We ended up going ahead and leasing our corporate office where we still are today. So we added more overhead. And we just kind of jumped in head first. So me and my business partners were very big risk takers.
Yep.
And without him, we wouldn't be here because a lot of people jumping in like we did head first. Where I'm going with it is right after we hired all these people, we leased the new building, the builder market just tanked. So we went from a really, really high and making too quick of a decision to probably the roughest 6 months since we started.
Yeah.
And we've had a lot of ups and downs, but we were hemorrhaging money. We had way too much overhead. We had a new facility, and all of our eggs were in one basket. And so we quickly had to start making adjustments. I have a commercial background as well. And I said when we started the business, I'm not getting into the commercial business. It's not going to happen. I was done with it. I didn't want anything to do with it. At that point, I made the decision, okay, well, some of my old commercial contacts.
Well, just going into that thought, what was the reason why you didn't want to get into the commercial game?
I'd been beat up in it.
Is it just a hard margin? They're just very competitive?
A little bit of all that. It's very competitive. Every job goes out to bid. So, typically on the commercial side, if I get a request to bid, then there's probably at least going to be 3 other subcontractors per builder. Yeah, that's just, I think, the standard requirements. The owners want to see multiple bids, make sure everything's on a fair playing level. So you're bidding not only competitively with the contractor, but then there's no telling how many contractors are involved as well. So it's even tougher to build a relationship on the commercial side than it is, when you're just doing retail business or you're working with a custom home builder. So that was a struggle. There's a lot of different superintendents. So the company that I did the majority of my work for, I started working with them on the commercial side when they were a startup, and had a great relationship with everybody that worked there, great relationship with the owners. We were all kind of in that same age range. And it started off great. I did business with those guys for probably 10 years, and their company grew exponentially. It's still very large today.
And they're predominantly commercial?
Yeah, it's all commercial and multifamily.
Okay.
And so the relationship got lost, as they continued to get bigger and bigger. And so it wasn't just a beating from it being busy. It was also emotionally draining as well, because I had worked hard myself to build a relationship with people, and I value those relationships. And it just kind of felt like it got pushed to the wayside as they got bigger and bigger and bigger. Not that I still wasn't acquaintances or friends with maybe the ownership, but now I'm answering to superintendents who don't really know who I am. They don't know how we grew together. There's no respect for where we came from together. And the relationship just kind of falls to the wayside. And it can happen with any company. But I think it had just kind of tainted me on the commercial side. So I decided I wanted to step back, from that.
That's interesting. So where did your work ethic come from? Where did all this hard work come from?
It's funny because I never really thought about it until you asked me.
Yeah.
But both of my parents worked really hard all my childhood. Both of them held full-time jobs. But I think what I distinctly remember is, I only knew one of my grandparents, and that was my grandmother on my mom's side. All my other grandparents had passed away before I was ever born, so I never got to meet them. So I was probably about 13 or 14 years old, and my grandmother had a massive stroke, and I was pretty close with her. And she ended up having to move into our family home with us, and I was still pretty young and didn't realize the impact that now looking back, I understand the impact that has on your family, because my parents live with us now.
Right.
But she couldn't communicate. She couldn't talk anymore. And so she lived with us, and my dad ended up taking on 3 jobs to be able to support the family. So my mom was still working full time. So beyond just the emotional impact that I'm sure it had on them at that point in time, I watched my dad work a full-time job. He was an electronic salesman. So he was working full-time Monday through Friday, like anybody else. On the weekends, he was, doing a side gig where he was going out and refilling vending machines. So he had this route where he would go in, collect the money, refill the vending machines. But then during the week, and it was, I believe, 7 nights. I want to say it was every night of the week, for the Dallas Morning News. He delivered newspapers. So at that point in time, again, I was young. This was when I was in high school.
When was he sleeping?
I don't know. I mean, seriously. And I'm not exaggerating this. This is the truth. I mean, this is really what he did. And so I hated it and I resented it because I was in high school and I couldn't quite comprehend. But he would wake me up at 12 o'clock because he needed help with this paper route.
Yep.
And I took for granted the fact that he's working a normal job all day because I was too young and selfish at that point in time. And he's going out on the weekends and doing other work. And then he's waking me up at 12 o'clock and I'm just an angry teenage boy, and I'm going out and rolling newspapers with him. And I remember sitting in the back of his truck and he would yell right and left. That was the routine we had.
Okay.
Because I didn't know the paper route. I'm just sitting in the back of the truck. So he would say right, and that meant throw the paper at the house on the right.
Yep.
Left, throw the paper at the house on the left. So we would be gone from probably midnight till 3 a.m, through a period of my high school career. It wasn't my entire high school career, but I'd say at least a good solid year. He would get me up and I would go out with him. We would do the paper route and then go back home and go to bed for a couple hours. And he would get right up and go to work and I would go to school.
Did he cut you in on any of the profits, or that was just
Nah, it was all for the family.
All for the family.
Yeah,
okay.
It was 100% for the family. And I haven't sat down and talked to them about the financial ramifications of that point in time. I just, now being an adult and kind of knowing what I know, I can look back on that and, he did what he had to do for our family.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. So what was your first job outside of
Okay,
outside of
so
that?
my first real job, I would say, was working at Subway in high school.
Okay.
Prior to that, I always wanted to work, which is, it's kind of funny because I have 3 kids now. So, and my kids are almost all adults. My youngest is in high school.
Okay.
My middle son just graduated high school last year, and my oldest works for me, and he's 22 years old. But I didn't see the same desire in any of our children, and I don't know if it's just a generational thing or what it is.
Yep.
I don't know, where it came from in me, but when I was young, I wanted to mow lawns. I wanted to earn money. I wanted to go out and do things, and a lot of my friends did too. I remember that. So we started out just mowing lawns, trimming people's hedges. I was probably 12, 13 years old, and I would do stuff like that. I even had a construction job with a gentleman. I don't remember his name or anything, but we would get up and ride our bikes over to his house. He'd buy us lunch and pay us like $10 an hour, which back then was great money, and we were just helpers, on doing remodel jobs. But my first real job was working at Subway, and I worked at Subway in Carrollton. I was born in Odessa, Texas, but born and raised here in Texas.
Okay.
And, went to Newman Smith High School. And, so my first job was right there in Carrollton, and I kind of became a celebrity in high school because I was the Subway guy.
You're a Subway guy.
Yeah.
And Subway was super popular back then. That was like Subway and CC's Pizza was probably 2 most popular places back in there to hang out, at least.
And Little Caesars, too.
Little Caesars,
yeah. Yeah, so Little Caesars was 2 doors down from us, and we used to do the sandwich and the pizza swap all the time.
Yeah.
We got tired of eating sandwiches, but I worked there all the way through high school.
Okay.
So I held that job for, I want to say probably 3.5 years. And then after that, I did go into the Navy for a brief stint. I ended up breaking my leg, so I was in for less than a year and was honorably discharged.
Okay.
And when I got back out of the Navy, I went to work at a car wash. So at that point in my life, I was just young.
Yeah, you're just trying to find your way, trying to figure out what all you wanted to do next. So how did you get into the industry, the flooring industry? It sounds like you've been in it for a little while now.
Yeah, probably been in it for 25 years, and it actually came from that car wash job. It was by accident, At that point in time, I had no direction. I wasn't saying, okay, what's my next step?
Right.
What's my plan? It was literally about what is the best job that's going to pay me the best at that point in time. I worked really hard, at every job that I had, but I was working at a car wash. There was a guy who was a little bit older, and I was the ticket writer at the car wash. So that's when I realized that I was actually pretty good at sales.
Okay.
So a lot of people may not know this, but the ticket writer at a car wash, and maybe things have changed. This is over 25 years ago. I didn't know I was good at sales. They asked me if I wanted to do it. So basically when somebody pulls up, you have a regular car wash and say it's $6.95 for that wash. The job of the ticket writer is to try to upsell. So they keep track of everything you sell above what the regular wash is in the computer. And so I didn't know the impact that I was making until the management came to me, but I was doing something different. And I was averaging $5 to $6 over what the regular wash was on every sell. So anyway, that's where I learned that I was able to sell, but I didn't really put it all together. I was just young. I was working hard. I was hustling. One of the customers, I started to make friends with customers because you get these regular people that come in all the time. One of the customers came in, and he was young and kind of hip. And, I kind of, I was watching him like, well, what's different about this guy? I kind of want to be like that guy. At that point in time, I'm 19 years old, 20 years old. And, he's driving a Mustang 5.0 and he's dressed sharp. And, so we began to talk and we chit chat every time he come in. And one day he just asked me, if I ever thought about being in a different industry. Somehow we started to talk about the flooring business. He turned out he was a tile salesman for a vendor.
Okay.
So basically who we buy from now.
That's right.
He worked for a company called Vilroy and Bach. And, so he was pretty successful doing that. Well, he said that the warehouse was hiring. And when he told me how much they paid, it actually paid more than what I was earning at the car wash. And so I basically went over, interviewed, took the job.
You did a Wolf of Wall Street. You show me how much I'm making, and I'll leave my job right now.
Yeah. So I took the position, working in the warehouse, and I was just a regular warehouse guy. Within a year and a half, I went from just being in the warehouse to warehouse manager. From warehouse manager, I went into customer service, and then I was promoted to customer service manager. This goes back earlier. You were talking about the turnover in the construction industry. So people are just coming and going constantly, and I'm just steady working and working hard. And you know, I got promoted up to customer service manager, and then I even got promoted up to operations manager. So I was over customer service and over the warehouse.
Wow! And how long of a period of time was that?
About a year and a half.
Wow! So you went from working in the warehouse to operations manager in a year and a half.
In a year and a half.
That's
I was
impressive.
very young, no college or anything like that. And so I had become pretty close with the president of the company and the vice president of the company. They actually worked, I worked at the warehouse where the corporate office was right upstairs.
Okay.
And so I got really close with them, and I was really happy with the position. I'm being promoted. They valued and recognized what I was doing, and so I was happy. And then all of a sudden, you know, this is a company that's based over in Germany, and I don't know all the red tape or exactly what happened, but the president, the vice, there was a complete restructuring. And so a new president came in, new VP came in, and basically all the hard work that I had done was, I guess, kind of forgotten about.
Got it.
And so they found out, you know, I didn't have a college degree. They didn't think that I was suited for the operations manager position. According to corporate, I shouldn't have been there in that position. So they kind of demoted me, you know, back to customer service manager, and they brought in a few different college candidates and tried those guys out. So it kind of put a bad taste in my mouth. And at that job, you know, I made friends with a lot of our clients there as well. And I transitioned onto the side of the industry that I'm in now. So I ended up going to work for a company called Philip J. Kester, the kind of regional manager for their Dallas location. He came in, we built a relationship, and he just asked me if I would be interested in working for him. So he kind of recruited me through that job. And so I was hired on that side of the business, which I really didn't have any experience in, as their operations manager. So, you know, I was probably 22 at the time.
Wow.
And I transitioned over to the installation side. So I went from kind of the operational side and the vendor side, where we're just selling material, into learning how to run crews. And, you know, it was kind of funny because I was young and no college, and all of a sudden I'm thrown into a position, and it wasn't a huge company. You know, there's half a dozen employees, and some of these men are older than me, and I'm supposed to be their boss. You know, thankfully it worked out pretty well. There wasn't any animosity or tension or anything like that. I came in and worked hard and hustled, and, you know, showed everybody respect, and they showed me respect. And I ended up working there for about a year and a half as well. And so what I learned there, so I kind of did this backwards. You know, I've done a little bit of everything in this business. And so I started noticing there, and these tile installers are making more money than I'm making. And, you know, and so I was still young, and I had made really good friends with, he's still a good friend of mine today. His name's David, and he was a tile installer. But he had gotten off of his knees, and he was kind of doing what I was doing, working in warehouses and running installation crews. I started talking to him. I'm like, man, these installers are making some serious money. And so we started talking, and next thing you know, I made the decision to step down from management and become a tile installer. So, you know, we started working for his dad. His dad owned a tile shop here in Dallas, and then we made a pretty big move just because we could. We were young, so it was kind of neat. No other reason than we just wanted to. We decided to move to Panama City Beach, Florida, and install tile. So now my wife does have some family there. So my wife's mom was there. So I can't say there was no other reason, but it was a big move. You know, I wouldn't
Panama City Beach is a nice area. I used to have some regions down there, and just really nice. That beach got wiped out about 10 years ago. And then it was kind of like the redneck Riviera. They took all those hotel and motels, and now they're all condos, high rises. I don't know if you've been down there since you.
Yeah. We've actually been back. We went on vacation there last year.
Yep.
Oh, when's the last time you went?
We usually go down to Destin or St. George, so we're either around there. We never do Panama City, but St. George is just on the other side of Tallahassee and Panama City. So
Okay.
it's in the it's like an island right on the outskirts of Panama City.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I was asking because I was absolutely amazed because we lived there for like 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I know exactly what you're talking about, you know, the Redneck Riviera.
Yeah.
And, you know, I remember spring break and all the big
Yep.
parties and everything. And it's insane how much
Yep.
it's grown.
Yep. No, it looks totally different because of all the the storms that have come in and the people that had those motels and kind of hotels that were in the 70s and 80s. They've just sold out and to these big conglomerates with these 50, 60 story high-rise condos that they're selling. So
They're still building them right now.
Yeah.
And then Pier Park out there,
Yep,
you know, it's
yep.
basically a giant outlet mall.
Yep.
Yeah, that place is amazing. And
That's going towards they call it what's the beach? Is it?
it's Santa Rosa, maybe.
Yeah.
I
There's
believe that's what it is.
yeah. I haven't. There's a beach that just got tore up.
Now that's Mexico Beach.
Mexico Beach.
You're talking
So-
about Mexico Beach. We actually got to
But that's
go.
Mexico's going towards Destin. So you got Panama City, Mexico.
It's the other
Is it the other way?
direction. It's the
Okay,
other way. I think
okay.
it's towards maybe Tallahassee.
Okay, maybe that's right.
Yeah, so you've got Fort Walton and Destin, you know, on one side, and then Mexico Beach is on the
Okay,
other side.
that's
It's
right.
right past Tyndall Air Force Base.
That's right.
So
Okay.
we went out there and saw that, and it was very sad. You know.
Oh, did it? Was it white? It just wiped out?
Oh
huh?
man, the devastation! It was horrible.
Yeah.
So we were there kind of right after, you know, that last hurricane hit, and
Mm-hmm.
Mexico Beach definitely got the worst of it. It's crazy because I've never been in a hurricane,
Mm-hmm.
but there was more devastation, it seemed like, inland in Panama City than
Mm-hmm.
there was on the beach. So I don't know how that works, but you know, we drove through town in Panama City, and there
Mm-hmm.
was a lot of the movie theater was completely destroyed. Trees down everywhere, and this was months after
Yeah,
the storm.
yeah.
You know, they were still struggling to get everything back in order.
I'm sure the people that did those new buildings probably hurricane proofed them as much as they could. You know, the ones that were by the beach and maybe the buildings that were inland didn't have as much of a
That's
of a
probably
chance.
true. Yeah, that was the old Redneck Riviera.
Yeah. That's what they call it. That and over there by not Hilton Head, Myrtle Beach.
Okay.
It was a Riviera.
Well-
so anyway, we were going to digress. What we're talking about is your history and your rise to fame. So we've gotten to Panama City.
I wouldn't call it fame. This is about as famous as I've ever
Yeah,
been
hey,
right here.
man,
I was actually joking. I'm doing a podcast. I'm going to be famous.
Yeah. Hey, it's been good so far. So Panama City, were you working with builders? What was the angle there?
I actually work for a company called Sharp Carpet and Ceramic Tile, and they're still there. They've been around for a long time. So the guy that owned the place, his name's Herb Sharp. I think, yeah, it's a whole nother story. But I worked there pretty much the whole time that we lived there for about 6.5 years, and I was a subcontractor.
Okay.
So me and my partner, David, we laid tile, and we did a little bit of everything wherever they sent us. So it was a really good experience. And I think it's helped me to be as successful as I am today, that I actually did the installation side of things. So I can understand and sympathize, whether it's warehousing, operations, installation. You know, I've done all of that stuff. And it was a good time. I actually really enjoyed it. It's totally different, you know, because you're just kind of out there on a job site with the radio, and you're really responsible for yourself and your quality of work. So if you're doing a good job and then people like you, you're going to stay busy. And things went really well. I mean, you know, I learned how to install tile really quick under David, and, you know, kind of took to it. And we did a lot of houses, a lot of those old condos. I remember no elevators, and I couldn't do it today, but, you know, hauling 50, 100 pounds up the stairs 50, 60 times because there's no elevator in those old condos on the beach.
Yep.
We would have to put cement board down, you know, the plywood subfloor, and we would go up 3 flights, and, you know, 1,000 square feet of cement board, 1,000 square feet of tile, all the thin set, everything that had to go up there. If I tried to do it now,
That's crazy.
But then we also did commercial too. So I was part of a team that tiled the second largest high school in the state of Florida, at least at the time.
Okay.
You know, I don't know if it still is.
It seemed like everything in Panama City is like, I don't know if they did that on purpose, was the largest. Like that Walmart is ridiculously huge.
Oh yeah.
And they had just stuff everywhere just because of the tourists, you know. So everything in that area, the large outlet malls, everything was kind of like oversized compared to stuff, you know, things in the surrounding areas.
Well, in that Pier Park, like I was just saying, I don't know if you've seen it, that place is massive.
Yeah.
And I was kind of surprised that they put it there because the population isn't that big. It's amazing that the tourist activity produces that much income.
Yeah.
It's impressive.
Yeah. I think they, like I say, it's kind of like Grandscape or whatever. They try to make it large enough where it's almost the attraction is not even the beach, it's the shopping. You know?
Yeah. No, I would agree with that.
So you're in Panama City. How did you get back to Dallas?
Okay. So, you know, I guess I'll talk about my faith because that's what led me back to Dallas. So at that point in time, and it's getting kind of personal, but my wife and I have been married now it'll be 23 years in February.
Okay.
And at that point in time, you know, I was still young and kind of dumb.
Yeah.
Maturing a little bit, but we had been married for probably about 7 years, I believe. And I guess you call it the 7-year itch or first midlife crisis of many. I don't know what it was.
That's it, man. You start questioning things.
So I started acting like a fool, and you know, we went through a rough period, and we were separated for about 3 months. And anyway, at that point in time, I'm a Christian.
Yeah.
I don't go around preaching it or promoting it for business or anything like that. But since you asked, you know, I got saved at that point in time. So I was raised in a Christian family and household, and I was baptized when I was younger, but I truly believe that I got saved, you know, and accepted Christ at that point in time. And that basically saved my relationship, and it just changed my thought process. So I actually was I think it's just my nature, you know, of just hard work and work ethic that I was just so passionate once I got saved. And, you know, our marriage and our family was put back together that I decided I wanted to be in ministry.
Okay.
So I made the decision that I was going to do whatever it took to get, you know, into ministry. And part of that decision, there wasn't a really good Christian college that was accredited, you know, close by. I would have had to have drove, you know, probably an hour and a half to school and back. And so we came on a vacation here to Dallas. I ended up going to Dallas Christian College, meeting with them. They accepted me, you know, to come in. Everything it was crazy how fast it happened. Within a 1-week vacation, you know, everything fell into place. We got an apartment, had no intention that we were going to be moving back, but it just fell into place. Got accepted to college, starting in a month, new apartment, everything. So I took that as kind of a sign, you know, I needed to come back to Dallas. And went back and told Sharp Carpet, you know, guys, I'm leaving. Everybody was baffled and shocked because, you know, we were doing really well. Just kind of left everything behind and moved back to Dallas, and my parents are here. And so I came back, stayed in the industry, but I went to school, you know, full time at night. So I went back to the operations side of the business at that point in time. So I was working at a service counter at American Tile. And then I think just what happened over a couple of years is life just kind of happened. You know, we have 3 kids at this point in time. And so I went to school for about 2 years. I did not finish the degree. You know, we kind of struggled with finding a home church and finding a place to settle in. So things just didn't quite go as planned. And, you know, I needed to make money to support our family. So I ended up accepting a job, getting back into management, and then progressed from there into owning my first flooring business. And when that happened, I just kind of put the ministry thing on the back burner.
Were you looking to be a pastor, a youth pastor? What was your aim there?
You know, I think at that point in time, I really wanted to be a pastor. You know, I listened to a lot of pastors on the radio, you know, because I was still laying tile. before I came back here.
Yep.
So that's all I did. Once I got saved and accepted Christ, I just literally all day long, people probably would have thought I was crazy. I had it on the Christian preaching stations, and I would listen to pastors preach back to back to back all day long. And so I really enjoyed it. I really loved what they were doing, and I really felt like that was a direction that I was being called to go. And that's not to say that maybe that won't happen at some point in my life.
You were just on fire at that point.
I was.
Yeah.
I
And
was.
I think they call that being on fire, which I think, is interesting. I heard somewhere that after the age of 20, 21, 22, you kind of created your habits, right? And not habits, but there's something that has to be traumatic in order for someone to change those habits or the personality traits. So whether it be a car accident, whether somebody around you, something happened traumatic. Like I have always wanted to buy a business for 15, 20 years. I looked at thousands of businesses, literally thousands of businesses, and learned why were businesses successful and so forth. Myself, I went to college to play basketball, but I didn't finish either. So, but I took my own MBA and just learned through financial analysis and looking at business owners, talking to people that are in the business sector, entrepreneurial wise. But I go back to, I had a friend of mine, really close friend of mine, that had a traumatic experience. He had brain cancer, and him and I worked out together. We thought we were invincible. This is 3-4 years ago, and he went from 240 pounds rock solid to 130 pounds, and I'm the one that took him to the hospital. He had no idea that he had even a problem. He was at home sick, and he probably would have died that day. So at that moment, once he's actually living today from brain cancer.
Oh, that's awesome.
So just jump to the good part of the story. But at that moment, I realized that I needed to do what I've always wanted to do. It's like kind of come out of the closet, so to speak, and say, hey, I want to own my own business. I was working for a great company for 15 years, kind of same way, kind of progressed through the company. But this was what I always wanted to do, was kind of own my own business. So I jumped out. But that being said, kind of circling back to what your deal is, the moment that things were kind of rocky in your relationship, you don't get strengthened or you don't become better unless some trials and tribulations happen, and you don't even appreciate the stuff that you have until something kind of goes wrong a little bit. And hopefully it doesn't go too wrong where you are, aren't able to get back or do something that you want to do. So it's always interesting to me to talk to these business people. Even just your childhood, working and having to help your dad out has allowed you to kind of instill that, that work ethic in your life.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when we talk about kids and family, it's always interesting because the things that you didn't have as a kid is what propels either it propels you or it kills you, because either you're dwelling on the fact that I didn't have this and I didn't have that, or if you're the type of person that says, I want my kids to have better than me, then it creates a little bit of entitlement for your kids, and they don't get the benefit of the hard childhood, the upbringing to grind. And so to some, they don't need that, but to others, it's just interesting to learn how you're grooming your kids and your family because of either what you had or you didn't have. But as a father, and I got 3 girls, it's tough for me to lay the hammer down because those are my girls. So you want them to have the ear pods and this and that and having to work. So it's just trying to find a balance of not entitling them and they're like, I need this, I need that, and making them work. My oldest is 13 and she's actually been reffing soccer games for the last year and a half. And then my middle one, she's like, Dad, can I model? I want to make some money too. So they know that they have to work. It's just trying to keep that bug in them to do stuff where they have their own savings account and checking account and that kind of a deal. So anyways.
Now, that's good that you're doing that because, we could definitely do things better, as parents on our end.
Yeah.
And but I believe we've done a pretty good job. But
Yeah.
we've also created some little monsters by spoiling them probably a little too much.
Yeah.
But I do think, you know, kind of like when I was younger, the story I was telling about my dad, maybe you don't recognize the impact always that you're having on your kids.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd like to think that.
But
yeah,
I think they see it, you know. I think, you know, some people try to talk them into doing it. And I think I see my kids' work ethic is directly related to how hard they see me work and how hard they see my wife work. And it's almost like, you know, a kid, an athlete, right? If you're an athlete and you played sports in the NBA or college or whatever, your kids are kind of innately going to go that direction because they're like, I've been watching my dad do this. I can do that. I can play sports, or I can, you know, I was just watching on football, unrelated. Ed Hockley, the most known referee, his son was reffing the Cowboy game. So your kids kind of follow in your steps, whether they want to.
Yeah, even if you don't.
And you talk about your son, you probably didn't like, I don't want to know if you want you in this lane. And it's just kind of a thing. They fall right in line, you know, and if you fight it, it ends up happening anyways.
It's kind of funny you mention that because my middle son, he doesn't work for me, but he did just get a new job, and he's working in the construction industry.
Yep.
So he's working at a warehouse, helping you know, they do remodels and road construction and stuff like that. So
it's familiar, you know. I didn't want to be. My dad is a really good salesman. I mean, like Hall of Fame for Pfizer. There's probably 150, 200 people in the Hall of Fame of Pfizer, and they probably have hundreds of thousand employees. And he's in New York in their Hall of Fame. So he's just a great sales guy. I innately have a lot of those traits. And so not knowing that, you talking about finding your way and just being able to communicate at a high level, I was doing that and didn't even really know I was doing it. People saw that in me. So I was in sales type positions, but I didn't want to be in his pharmaceutical industry because I was trying to be different, right? And we talk about business all the time now. He's like my best friend, but we talk about stuff that we've never talked about, and we're right lock in step just because I saw him doing it as a kid. I'd be in his office just hanging out, playing, you know, whatever. And I'm listening to conversations. So just them being around, being in the room, it's something about it. Just kind of gets into your family senses about how things go and how to operate a business. So
sure, yeah. No, I think sometimes we don't know the impact that we're having on them, and it's weird because sometimes when you're talking to your own kids, you feel like maybe they're not getting it.
Exactly.
But you know, I noticed that as they were growing up, anytime we would send them over to somebody else's house, like they would go spend the night with another friend, the parents would always come back, your kids are so great. And they would be, and I'm like, what? What are these kids?
I'm like, you talking about my kids? I have that same conversation. You're like, Addison? You talking about Addison? You're like, she was awesome. I just have her anytime. You're like,
I think they just show out for us.
I'm telling you.
But that's good. So, no, I totally agree with that. You know, it's kind of like me not recognizing. I can look back on it now with my dad and my mom. You know, my mom worked very hard. They're both retired now, but, you know, I didn't probably recognize the impact it was going to have on me later in life when I was living in it at that moment. That's
right. So let's fast forward a little bit. Your new company, Good Guys.
Yeah.
How did that come about? And tell us what you guys do.
Okay, so the name of the company is Good Guy Flooring. Right now, we're sitting right on top of our 3-year anniversary. So we started, you know, about 3 years ago. You know, I kind of mentioned it before when we first got started. It was just focusing really on custom home builders and general contractors. Since then, we've evolved a lot. You know, right now we have 22 employees. And
wow, 22.
Yeah, we have 22 as of today.
And what percentage of that is installers? What percentage of that do you?
None of that's installers.
Really?
So that, yeah, if you added our installers into it, honestly, I hate that I don't have that number for you, but it would be a lot.
That's significant.
A lot more. Yeah.
So those are operations sales guys.
Yes. Yeah. That's just our full-time staff.
Got
you
it.
know, warehouse, operations, accounting. And sales, I would probably say sales makes up about half of that team. You know, sales is kind of the driving force of what we do. But, you know, it started out 3 years ago with just me. and now we have 22 employees. We went from just focusing on custom home builders to adding the commercial multifamily department. And now what we're really pushing is the retail side of things. So we've continued to evolve progressively, and a lot of the stuff I wouldn't have even thought we were going to get into. So I could have envisioned us possibly getting into the commercial flooring and the retail flooring, but now we've hired a remodel manager. So we actually do residential, remodel as well.
Okay.
And we're moving into a new showroom right off of Highway 121. We're going to be 2 exits down from Nebraska Furniture Mart.
Okay.
So it's going to be Standridge and 121. So we are moving front and center where everybody's going to see us, high traffic, high exposure, versus where we are now. We're kind of off the beaten path, very little traffic. So we're hoping that's going to drive a lot more just walk-in business. And create a lot more awareness about our company. And we're going to continue to market and do all the Google pay-per-click and all those types of things, but we're going to be able to re-gear the marketing and have more public awareness in that location. And we're really going to be pushing the retail side of things. So we have no intention of getting out of custom home builders and getting away from restoration business or insurance business or even commercial and multifamily. But I think we're going to put more of our focus into the retail side through more analytics and just study over the last probably 12 months, really realized that we started a flooring company and we literally went after the smallest percentage of market share.
Which was?
Home builders.
Okay.
Yes, there's a lot of construction and new construction happening in DFW, but when you look at the analytics across the United States, it's absolutely drastically different. The retail industry is the biggest industry.
Is that now, is that DIYers or is that more so?
Combination of both.
Okay.
We really like to do the turnkey business, but we also do some, selling just materials only. And then sometimes we'll even do installation if somebody has their own material. Right now we're competing against, Floor & Decor, Lumber Liquidators, some of the big companies, and those people are really focused to DIYers.
Got it.
The funny thing is, what I notice is people they'll buy their material, and I don't know that they've really put a whole lot of thought into who's going to install it.
Interesting.
Yeah, so we get a lot of leads, a lot of calls from consumers to just install the material. And we will do it. There's a lot of flooring companies that won't do that.
Yeah.
Obviously, we prefer to do the turnkey. There's a lot of value, I think, to doing turnkey. It might cost you a little bit more because it's really hard to compete. Floor & Decor, Lumber Liquidators, some of those guys have just really good prices. I can't argue that.
Yeah.
But when you go buy your material somewhere and then you go and have somebody else put it in, whether it's a professional company like ours or a guy working out of the back of his truck, you start to get some gray area on warranties. Who's at fault if there is an issue, something like that. So we try to educate the consumers and let them know. I mean, we're going to be competitive. We're going to sell stuff at competitive prices. There's a lot of competition in our industry. But we also will provide people, we stand behind our work. And it's a lot easier for us to stand behind that work because we have relationships directly with the vendors if we're providing the entire package.
No, that makes a lot of sense.
So, we would like to see the retail side of it grow drastically and the remodel side. That's probably where the majority of our focus is going to be as we get into the new facility. But we're still going to continue to nurture the custom home builders and the commercial side of things as well.
What's your biggest sector right now, like as far as percentage-wise, if you were to say how that pie
It's a
was
pretty
broken up?
even split, to be honest with you. I was surprised. The marketing is working, even though we're not where the public can really see us. But I was surprised to see we're probably averaging, 20% retail. I would say that our custom home builder might be a larger percentage, maybe in the 25 to 30% range. It kind of varies month by month. But even on the commercial side, that's probably our lowest sector. But then, we separate the restoration, business out as well.
Yeah.
We treat that as insurance.
Yep.
And, we have a few big customers. We work with you guys and we work with some other clients as well. And, that's up there with the home builder and the retail business right now too.
Got it. So I think you guys were telling me about y'all were doing lighting now.
Absolutely. No, I'm glad you asked. So when we get into the new showroom, the cool thing about lighting is we can have flooring displays all over the floor, and the lighting hangs from the ceiling. So we can have, a lot of lighting that we can show people, and it just seems like kind of a natural transition. We're not the first ones to do it. Previous place I worked, did flooring and lighting as well. And apparently there's other flooring companies that are doing it too. So that seemed like a natural transition. We have a fantastic employee, who came from a previous place of employment working with lighting. So she's going to transition right into our lighting manager at the new facility. She's kind of heading that up for us. So we're going to be doing flooring. We're going to be doing lighting. We're also going to do home decor. So we're going to have, little knickknacks, pictures and clocks and, items like that people, when they come in, it's a little more of a design center feel.
Okay.
But then we're also going to be doing full remodel too. So we'll have some little cabinet kiosk, countertops. We're going to try to make it as easy of a shopping experience as we can.
Got it.
So the way we're structured right now, because most of it's outside sales, we don't really have the showroom set up necessarily for if you're just a retail person walking off the street, you're not going to walk up and see prices on things. Outside sales guys are pricing everything out on a per job basis, which is very common in our business.
Right.
In the new showroom, we're going to a full barcoding system. So we got a lot of things happening over the next 90 days. So we're going to be in the new showroom by February 1st.
Wow.
We're running into all the red tape. Thankfully I'm used to construction. We were hoping we would be in sooner than that, but we're still working on the permits to get the new building completely underway. So it's a shell right now.
Yep.
We've got to get that completely done. And in the process of doing that, we've got a lot of new displays, coming in, a lot of old displays going out. We've got to get all the lighting set up, all the home decor set up, and we're going to a complete barcode system. So every item, including the flooring, is going to have a scan code on it where it's going to pull up the price in the system. And it's also going to be priced where if, you came in and you wanted to shop, you're going to be able to immediately look at the product and know what the cost of that product is.
Gotcha.
Same thing. We're hoping to be able to do that even with things like cabinets, countertops, so that a consumer can walk in and they may not be able to get an exact hard cost, but you could walk in and you could look at the cabinet, look at the countertop, look at the backsplash, and you would kind of know, well, this is about $110 a linear foot. And at least kind of give that consumer the ability to do some quick math. We can help them through that process and get an idea of what a kitchen remodel might cost or what a bathroom remodel might cost. We're also going to do outdoor kitchens, which we do all this right now, by the way. Our remodel manager works for us. The showroom just isn't completely set up to handle that yet. So we do everything outside, but we make trips to people's houses and we're doing painting. We're doing full remodel jobs right now. But we're also doing outdoor kitchens, pergolas.
How are y'all getting that business with just being Good Guys Flooring? Are y'all getting that through a kind of word of mouth or?
Okay. A lot of these leads that come in, when we started to make the transition a couple of months ago, it's amazing how many people hit us up for flooring. And a lot of it is just word of mouth at that point. So I would say probably 75% of all consumers that are looking to buy flooring or get a shower remodel are looking to have something else done. So we simply, when we go out, hey, while we're here, is there anything else that you need done in your home?
That's a good call.
We do painting. We do everything. We'll put a new roof on your house.
Wow.
And I would say probably 75% of all the consumers have something else that they want done. The gentleman that we brought in that's heading up the remodel division, he has a lot of relationships as well. So he brings that value to the company beyond just his expertise.
Right.
He brings, you hit on it earlier, he has subcontractors that do everything that work for us now. And then he also has a lot of relationships as well.
Got it. So in 5 years, where do you see the company? You guys have been growing at a pretty fast rate.
We have been. That's a tough one because there's been so many obstacles and things that have happened along the way to get us to where we are. Honestly, I would really like to see us within 5 years probably saturating the DFW market, having more than just one showroom. But at the same time, I talked on it earlier. as soon as we started to see the cash flow and the profit dollars at the beginning, we jumped really, really fast. And, you know, I want to be very cautious about that. You know, I don't want to put us in a position like that again because, you know, we're still technically a startup and we've grown so rapidly. We've been chasing cash since day one.
Yeah.
And it's still something that we battle with, you know, today is both profitability and cash. So we're trying to find that sweet spot. I think we're really right on the verge of that. I do believe that the new showroom's going to get us there. It's going to help push us over between that and the added revenue streams. So what I'd really like to do is settle in next year and just make sure that this is going to
do what you think it's going to do.
Yeah, and actually make some money.
Yeah.
And then I would say within the next 5 years, if that works, we would probably plan another showroom and do it one at a time and make sure that we invest the proper amount of time and energy because finding the right people is a huge piece of that puzzle. When we open another showroom in the Metroplex, I mean, reality is I'm probably going to have to pull 30 to 50% of the good core base that I already have established at this current showroom and move them over there because I don't think it's realistic to assume that you're going to go hire 10 new people off the street and open a new facility and it's going to work out, you know, well from that perspective. So my thought is that we would probably transition employees over maybe about half and half, and then hire new people for both locations.
Maintain the culture.
Yep, absolutely. That's important to us as well.
Yeah. No, that's good. That's good, man. Well, I enjoyed having you on. Is there anything else you want to mention on this podcast while you got the floor?
Man, I appreciate you having me here. I really do.
It's been good. You've been a good mentor, partner. We always kind of chop it up about what's going on in the state of the business. We're in similar industries, but not really competing.
No, absolutely.
So it's always good to have friends in the industry that you can ask questions, lean on, and have a good dialogue with. So I appreciate you coming on, and look forward to maybe having a recap in the coming months or maybe the next year. So
yeah, once we get in the new showroom,
that'll be good.
Yeah, you'll have to come check it out too.
Cool, man.
All right.
Thank you.